Hello, how's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing good and having a good night. I got a little sinus infection going on. I have to go pick up some antibiotics after I get done with this. But other than that, going pretty good up here. Back in Michigan again. Back in Michigan, and I'd say I'm glad to be back. But you know where my home is at and where my heart is at, and that's in South Carolina. But do what we got to do, I reckon. Today, I wanted to talk about a subject that's a lot of people have been talking about, and that's these camps that are being. There's a bill that's being introduced to where these camps are going to be set up. Basically, if the bill passes, now it's not in progress yet, but if the bill passes, then camps will be set up to intern people, basically. And the name of this bill is in front of the New York Senate right now, or from New York's Congress, whatever, right now, and it's 00416, and that's the name of it. So let's look at this bill a little more in depth. There's been a lot of talk about it, but some details have been left out from what I've seen so far, and I just wanted to fill in some gaps and look a little at the history of this bill. And we'll start off by looking at the history of this bill. Senator Nick Perry, from a Democrat from New York, originally introduced this bill, and his quote was, "This bill was originally introduced to address public health concerns related to the containment of the Ebola virus after it was discovered that Ebola-infected persons had entered the United States." So this is not the first time this bill has been introduced, and we're going to look at all the different iterations of it here in just a second. And he goes on to say, "There is no intent, no plan, or provisions in my bill to take away or violate any rights or liberties that all Americans are entitled to under our Constitution." Now, that itself is basically a contradiction of what this bill actually is. This bill is actually talking about taking people who are positive for the coronavirus, or those who have come into contact with people who are positive, or those who are suspected to be positive, or those who are suspected to have come into contact with those who have been positive, and putting them in basically containment camps. I'm calling them COVID camps. Think back a few years ago, I saw a comment right there, Spartan. Remember being 17 and seeing videos about FEMA camps, plastic coffins where you can fit 4 or 5 bodies each. And that's one of the things I was going to equate this to here is there's 800 FEMA camps in the U.S. right now, 800 FEMA camps. And I'm going to put up a link in just a second along with a couple other links. And these camps range from things like World War II Japanese internment camps to modern military bases that have been closed down to some of the closures in the past, and industrial facilities. There's a pretty long list of these, and I'm going to go ahead and link one article right here. And this article here is a Google map showing about 200 of these camps right here. And also another article right here talking more in depth about these camps. Enter. All right. So, a lot of people will say, well, where are they going to contain these people at if they put them in camps? What are they going to do with them? The camps are already set up. We saw that during the Obama-Biden administration. And this is a big thing. It was all over YouTube. For those that have been on YouTube for a while or following this stuff, we were conspiracy theorists. We were worried about something that was never going to happen. Well, it may be happening right now. Those coffins that you were referring to there, Spartan, those coffins come out of a company. This company makes, I think those are called casket liners is the technical name for them. And you're supposed to be able to put your coffin into those casket liners and put it into the ground and bury it. I've never seen one used in person. And, I'm 50 years old. I've been to my share of funerals, but I've never seen a casket liner placed, into the grave before the casket. And that's the supposed purpose of these. But if you Google that, and if you look at the Google Maps, then I did an estimate one time, and I think I put it out on the video probably a year or two ago. And the estimate was there was almost 1 million of these plastic coffins there in this one location. And I researched the company too at the time, and the company does not do that volume of business. So these are still there. They haven't gone anywhere. So they're not been selling them. They haven't left from where they're at. So I guess we just have to sort of, take that as we may on that. But getting back to the bill before I get too far off subject here. Getting back to the bill here, I'm going to read just a little bit off of it. But before I read off of it a little bit, I want to look back again at the history of it. This bill was originally introduced in the 2015 to 2016 New York, and it was called A6891. It was introduced again in 2017 to 2018. It is called A680, and it was introduced again 2019 to 2020, and it was called A99. Now it's introduced another time for the 2021-2022 year, and it's called A416. Now, will this bill pass? I'll go ahead and say to begin with that I don't think it'll pass. I don't think it's going to go through, but there are some reasons why it might go through, and we're going to talk about those in a second too. There's a lot more to it than just objections to this bill. I go on Reddit a decent amount because people can speak their mind a little more freely on there than they can on some other sites. And on Reddit, there's a lot of opposition to this bill, and there's a lot of opposition to this bill across the board. You have a lot of politicians that are coming forward and they're opposing this because it's a definite infringement on everyone's rights. But you also have the citizens of New York. One of the channels I like to watch, Angry Prepper, he was talking about that today, and he was talking about the people he knows, the citizens he knows there. They're definitely upset about this. So there is a lot of opposition to this bill. But the most concerning thing about this bill to me is if we look at the, I'm going to give you the exact paragraphs. I'm also going to put a link again, another link here. Not trying to kill y'all with links, but I'm going to put that in there. This is the actual bill right here, so you can read every word of it. And from there, you can link, if you look at the top of it, you can link to the previous bills, the ones that we just had mentioned. And you can see they're all almost identical. And that's sort of concerning in itself. That tells us that since 2015, Democrats have been trying, Nick Perry has been trying to push this bill through. So what's the big rush? What's the big agenda to be able to have the ability to put American citizens into containment camps? COVID camps is what I'm going to call them. Now, the bill itself, under sections 4, is one of the sections, and it mentions it a little bit earlier too, but I'm just going to look straight at section 4 of this bill right here. The first section, section 4A, says a confirmed case or a carrier can be detained. Basically, I'm sort of, paraphrasing a little bit. But it's section B that really bothers me. And section B, a suspected case or suspected carrier. Okay. So there's no definition anywhere. I've read the entire bill, and there are a couple more things I want to talk about in that bill. The thing that bothers me about that is, what is a suspected case? Is it me walking into a store with no mask on? Oh, well, he's got the virus. He doesn't have a mask on. He's not protected. Is that a suspected case? Is it my neighbor who doesn't like me saying he's got the virus? I saw him coughing yesterday. What is a suspected case? How do you determine a suspected case? There is nothing in that bill that outlines what a suspected case may be. A suspected case may be me on YouTube saying, I don't want to follow the guidelines. And that may be a suspected case on its own. So that leaves it wide open basically for anyone. A suspected case could be a business opening up, and say a bar opening up and 20 people going in there, and suddenly it gets stormed. You're all suspected cases. Now, this bill does give them the ability, roundabout speaking. This is where it takes a lot of interpretation at, and that's the length of the detainment that it gives them. It does not really describe the types of facilities they'll be kept in, but my best guess on that is the existing FEMA camps or the existing military hospitals that were already built, which would in turn be guarded, by probably military. And This the suspected part of it, that's the hardest part now, or the hardest part to define. But the length of the internment, with the length of the internment, it basically says, and I am paraphrasing because it's a multiple page bill here, and that's why I put the link up. I want, check it out. Really, you should. Not because, I mean, even if you aren't from New York, check it out, because this is not going to stop here. If this bill gets shot down, we're going to see it in other Democratic states. I guarantee you, California is going to be one of the next ones that present a bill like this, and it'll probably go through there, whether or not it does in New York. Now, in New York, it's a lot of resistance to it, but it does have a. I do want to bring out the fact that one thing that I've seen that hasn't been mentioned is it does say that those that test negative for COVID could not be detained longer than 3 days without giving a hearing. They would have to apply for a hearing in front of a judge to be able to be released from this camp. The hearing could, and these are business days, not days, Monday through Friday, not counting holidays. So 3 business days if I test negative. Or, well, first of all, why would I be in this camp if I tested negative? Okay, so then I got 3 business days to apply to see a judge, Then they have 5 business days to determine whether or not I can see that judge. Other than that, there are no specific timeframes laid out. And that's a scary part of a bill like this, is since it is so vague in certain areas, when it uses words like suspected cases, suspected carriers, that's pretty much anyone. Because if this virus is as transmittable as people say, then everybody is suspected of carrying it. So that's basically everyone. They can basically contain anyone and everyone at that point. Now, my guess is that's not what they're going to do. They're going to, if this bill were to pass, they're not going to just detain everyone. They're going to begin with the ones who have resisted from the beginning. So for those of you that have resisted wearing the mask, like myself, for those of you that have spoke out about it or against it, like all of us here pretty much, then we will probably be the first targets of something like this. Now, a concerning thing, I don't think it'll pass because there's a lot of opposition against it. Now, but then again, we've seen politicians come on TV and tell us one thing and do another when it comes time to vote on a bill. So this could pass, it's possible. But the reason I say that there is a possibility it might pass is because of the date. It's going in front of committee January 6th. And we just talked about January 6th on the previous live stream. January 6th is also the day that the presidential election should or supposed to be certified, or either an emergency audit would be approved. And Ted Cruz, there's been a lot of calls by Democratic congressmen and women that have said Ted Cruz should be put in jail for treason for trying to invoke the emergency audit. Well, that's part of our constitutional, part of our constitution. That's part of our due process that was put there for a reason. So it's really insane that anyone would even say that. But it's the same exact day. Think about what all's going to be going on that same day. We've got that big hearing right there. And that's the biggest one. That's going to take up the news right there. So nobody's even going to be looking at this New York thing that day unless they're watching local New York news. Then there's already scheduled protests for that day. There are multiple groups scheduled for protest and demonstrations, whatever, that day. And like always with the most recent protest, when the sun goes down, we can probably expect a lot of violence. So that'll dominate the news later on in the evening. That's why I think this does have a possibility of sneaking through. Probably not. But if it does sneak through, then 30 days after it passes is when they begin these detaining people. The bill will go into effect 30 days after that if it is passed. I think this is more or less a test run more than it's really going to pass, because that's pretty severe. Even though New York is locked down pretty hard right now, that's still a pretty severe step for them to take. So if that bill fails, what would it take for it to pass? Well, it would take martial law. And under the National Production Act, or the Defense Production Act of 1950, it was rectified by President Obama in 2012, January 6th, 2012. I think I might have that date wrong, but it was 2012 with Executive Order 13603. And that executive order gave the president even more power under martial law. All right. Now, once the National Defense or the Defense Production Act is put into play, then all it takes is an autograph at that point, a signature to declare martial law. And the National or the Defense Production Act was put into play in February this year to force some companies, and I'll tell you the names of the companies right here, Becton Dickinson and the Quidel Corporation, to produce medical supplies and produce them in a timely fashion to help fight the coronavirus pandemic. So as we speak, that act is in effect, which means martial law literally is a step away. And with the change in the presidency coming up, most likely, with a change in the presidency coming up, all it takes is a snap of his fingers. All it takes is a signature on a piece of paper, and we are under martial law. And it doesn't even have to go that far. The Defense Production Act and the Constitution itself and state constitutions across the United States give the governors of each state the power to declare martial law under extenuating circumstances. And especially it's written out under national or local emergencies. And this is already considered a global emergency, a national, local emergency. And this gives Cuomo the right basically to enact martial law. So if he were to determine that he wanted this act to pass, then all he's got to do is sign a paper too. Now that might sound a little far-fetched, and maybe that's not going to happen. I think it'd be a little bit too soon for them to take those kind of steps. I think there are other things that they're going to try to put in place before they actually try to, get a little deeper into those steps. But we just want to know that that possibility is there. Really, right now, we're teetering on the edge. It only takes a few signatures on a few pieces of paper, and we literally are in martial law, and we're literally forced into containment camps. And other than fight back, there's nothing legally we can do about that because those laws are already in place. There's another law also, or another bill, I should say, in New York that's be coming to vote pretty soon. And this bill is called A11179. And it's a mandatory vaccine bill. And I think this is going to set some precedents. Let me bring this up. Assembly Maker Linda Rosenthal, a Democrat from the 67th District of New York, represents the residents of Manhattan's West Side, recently introduced a bill that would require a state to administer the COVID-19 vaccine, and it would mandate the vaccine in certain situations. Now, that's a key word there. It'll mandate the vaccine in certain situations. Now, as I go on to read this, and I'll put this link up in a second too, the situations that exempt a person, let me see here. The situations that exempt a person from taking this vaccine are A11179 would permit individuals to avoid the mandate if they get a letter from a licensed medical professional indicating they are medically exempt. The bill makes no mention of any other potential exemptions from the mandate, such as for religious reasons or personal convictions or beliefs. So basically, if you get a letter from the doctor saying that you are not able to medically take this, then that would be the only exemption in that case. And, think about that. Doctors require licenses from the state. They require licenses to be able to perform their practice. What kind of pressure will be put on doctors at that point to say, no, you can take this vaccine. You're fine to take it. You're fine to take it. So I don't expect many people at all being medically exempt from something like this. Once again, that bill is considered a long shot, is what a lot of people are saying. They're saying that bill probably won't pass, and hopefully it won't. I really hope it doesn't. And it would be very bad if it did. There's a lot of people speaking out against that bill too. Lawmakers, a lot of people online are speaking out against that bill. But what it does is it shows us, which we already knew what they were trying to do, But this is absolute evidence of what they're trying to do. There's no disputing what is going on here. They're trying to make us take a mandatory vaccine. Those that refuse are now suspected cases that they want to put in containment or COVID camps. So if you don't take the vaccine, they want to put you in a camp and keep you there indefinitely and basically until you die, probably, or until you conform to them. And that's what we're seeing here is they're laying the groundwork. They're taking one of the most populated states in the nation, and they probably know that this bill probably isn't going to pass like it is, not right now. But what this does is this puts thoughts into people's minds. And this is where the control aspect comes right back into it. And think about it, there's so many people complaining about the lockdowns. And I've even heard people, before say, well, if you have sick people, why not make them stay at home and, let the healthy people work? And which makes sense. But now they're going to start thinking along the lines, well, why not? It's not such a bad idea to put these people in these camps or these health facilities where they'll be taken care of. I mean, who gets taken care of in a camp? I mean, seriously, what kind of treatment would somebody really get in some camp that's set up to contain them? A prison, basically. That's what's called containment. They don't call it containment because you voluntarily go there. They call it containment because they put you there and they keep you there. They contain you in that area and they do not let you leave. That's why they call it containment. But what we're going to see since this bill has been introduced again, and since this new bill about mandatory vaccines has been introduced, is we're going to see a lot of people getting on board with this. Already, you can pretty much assume the majority of the Democratic Party is already on board with this. And you're going to see a lot of other people that you probably didn't expect to get on board with this too, just so they can, maybe get their freedoms back. But I got news about that. The freedoms they've already took from us, we'll be lucky to get those back. I mean, it's not going to come without a fight, basically. And I don't necessarily mean, a violent fight. I just mean without us taking some type of measure, some type of stance on this. So this is some pretty serious stuff. Whether these actually go through or not is setting the groundwork for what we're fixing to see come through in the future. This is not something that we should overlook and say, well, even if it doesn't pass, well, it didn't pass, we're good. No, we're not, because all they're going to do is ratify it a little bit, make it a little, a little more politically correct, maybe, and put some text in there that makes it sound better to the average person. And then they're going to pass it right on through. The mandatory vaccines, I've always thought that, and I do believe this, that mandatory vaccines will be done by employers. I don't think the government will mandate that on us. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong on that. I think the government will enforce it, though, with these containment camps. So the companies, the big companies, are going to be the ones that really mandate our vaccines. All right. Wow, Tom, 40% of people that died of COVID were in nursing homes. That's a very interesting stats. Taking the 90s. Mm-hmm. DB, it's good to see. I saw your last comment where, or on the last video where you said that you weren't getting the notifications. I'm glad to see you got it this time. It's good to have you here. And these bills, this is what's going to take us, and maybe not necessarily these exact bills, but it's what's going to come after that's going to take us in spiraling down if somehow we don't stop it. We've got the Georgia runoff elections coming up tomorrow, and this is a really important set of elections to be watching. They start tomorrow, or they've already started, for early voting and for mail-in ballots and things like that. But tomorrow's the election day for that special election down there. And once this special election takes place, it's going to probably take 2 or 3 days, 4 days to get the results back. But if Georgia does go completely blue like that, and if these seats were, given to the Democrats, then imagine the ride we're in for with a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate, and a Democrat president. And the things that they're already saying that they're going to do, the things that we saw Biden do, or, lack of what he did when he was in office, then it's more than concerning. I mean, this is a turning point for us. Hopefully tomorrow, hopefully Georgia will stay red, and hopefully those Senate seats will go to Republicans, just so we can keep some type of balance. It's always a bad thing when one party controls the entire government. And in this case, with the things that they're saying they're going to do, they're already stepping on our rights. They're already talking about mandatory vaccines. They're now talking about containment camps. And I think they purposefully waited until now to bring this out with the containment camps, to bring it up again, because, with everything that's going on right now, a lot of people are watching this, but not everybody's watching it. It's not mainstream. I mean, not everybody knows that this is going on. And that's part of the reason why it's being brought up right now. They're hoping that maybe it'll slip, through the cracks there. And it might. Hopefully that, people will stand up to it in New York and put a stop to it. But this is just the beginning. I mean, we really don't think that this bill is going to stop here. I mean, the bill might stop here, but this idea of this is not going to stop here. For years, we've seen them, we've seen all the stuff in the past. And it's like all these old conspiracies are coming full circle now. We saw where they trained our military during the Jade Helm exercises. And I'm ex-military, so I love all my brothers and sisters in the military. But they trained them years ago with Jade Helm to control the American population. That was the entire goal of that training, was to control an insurrection with the American population. And it was played off. And of course, nothing happened. We didn't see anything happen. But here's the thing about that. A lot of those people who served during that time, they're out now, because you're talking a few years back. But now the training manuals, the tactics, the techniques are all in place on how they would subdue a population. Most soldiers will follow orders. And if you don't think soldiers will come and confiscate your guns, look back at Katrina, because they did there. And they're doing what they're ordered to do. I hope enough of them will see the light, basically see the right path. But we can't count on the soldiers, just saying, hey, we're not going to do this, because most likely they are going to do it. And that's another thing that's really, disconcerting, really disheartening there. So this is going to be a trying year. And this month in particular is going to be very difficult. The next 2 days, we got the Georgia runoff, January 6th. We got the big, electoral college thing that's going to go on in Congress there. And during that, we've got this bill that we were talking about being brought to committee in New York. So there's going to be a lot. And that's not to mention the protests, the demonstrations that are going to be going on January 6th. It's going to be a chaotic day. And I think that the New York stuff is going to get pushed to the back burner. And we're not going to hear anything about it unless we dig to look for it. So it's going to be crazy. So I'm going to look at some questions right here real quick. Agenda 21. That's right. Agenda 21, 2021, Agenda 21. That makes sense, don't it? And you're right there, Perry. I'll call you peripatetic. I'll call you Perry. Okay. Yeah. A lot of people are going to actually give their kids up for this. A lot of people are going to, it's amazing. I mean, if we look at our normal society, we see parents that will turn their backs on their kids and turn their backs on people that turn their backs on their families and all this. So when it comes time to go to a containment camp or let your kid go, there's a lot of people that's going to let their kids go. And that's terrible. That's terrible. Cuomo is the modern Hitler. You got that right. I can't believe he won. What was it? And one of those awards, Emmy or something, for daytime TV. I mean, how does that happen? Not that I care about the Emmys, because I really couldn't care less about them, but it's absolutely crazy. Sounds like the movie Songbird. Now, the movie Songbird, for those of you that hadn't seen it, spoiler alert. It's so I don't want to ruin it, but I think if you watch the previews for that movie, then basically you see what it's all about. To me, there weren't really any surprises in it, but it's based on the COVID virus. It literally is based on COVID. They call it COVID-23 in there. But what we see are containment camps. Containment camps. They're keeping people in these camps. I think they call them QZ quarantine zones in there, which is basically what they're, what they are. So they've got these camps. They keep all the people that are suspected. They don't even have to test. They're suspected in those camps, and only the ones that aren't, or basically the rich people or the people that have to provide services for those rich people, are allowed to roam freely. I mean, it's worth watching. It's definitely worth watching. But, it's not the greatest movie ever, but it's definitely worth watching. Big budget movie, well made, well acted, that kind of thing. But it's probably not going to surprise you. Yeah, Spartan, I sort of am thinking along those same lines to a degree. This vaccine, there has been a lot of cover-ups already with people who have had severe reactions to this vaccine. There have been multiple cases of Bell's palsy, which is one side of your body basically being paralyzed from this vaccine. And the CDC wrote that off. They said, well, we expect that, from this large of a sampling. Why would you expect that? If this thing's going to be safe, it shouldn't do anything to anybody. Sorry, but that's the way I look at it. But yeah, anything that happens from this vaccine, anyone that's hurt from it, it's going to be blamed on this new strain that's already here. It's already here is what they say. Yeah, Cuomo, I tell you, he is this guy's high on himself. I don't know how else to say it, but I mean, he gets off on coming on TV and talking about what he's doing, and he's a jerk. Yeah, I mean, he's just the biggest asshole there is out there. I can't stand the side of him myself, and just saying. Hey, yeah, bug out, Bubba. You're right. This bill may have been intentionally drastic the way it was set, just like you're saying there, so that you can, like he says, so you can shock people. You put something out there that's just so crazy like this, we're going to start putting people in containment camps, anybody that we suspect of it. And everybody's like, no, you're not going to do it. And then the next thing you know, they'll come back, a month later and say, all right, well, we're just going to do the ones that test positive, and then people will accept it more, but they'll sneak a little something into that bill to basically do the same thing. And, fear tactics like that. Wow, Homestead, Australia, $10,000 fines. That is high. That's unbelievable. Yeah, Perry, be wary. Your neighbors will be recruited as informants against your every move. And that's true. That's absolutely true. And when bills like this start making it through, and they're going to start making it through, especially if the Georgia election goes blue, these are going to start making it through. We're going to start seeing this stuff being passed by the end of this year, the end of this month, if that long. And you can darn sure bet that your neighbor, your neighbor 2 streets down, sees you walk outside without a mask, or sees you coughing in your yard. There'll probably be some types of incentives given out, like those reward hotlines, those tip hotlines where you can call in and, get a reward if you turn somebody in. It's going to be the same thing. And people are going to do it. And not just that, but people are going to do it out of spite. If you got somebody that doesn't like you, all they're going to have to do is make a phone call and say, hey, this dude, I think he's been exposed to COVID. And at that point, you really think they're going to ask me a bunch of questions, or are they just going to jerk me up and take me to some, COVID camp? It's liable to get pretty bad. It's liable to get like we saw in Germany if something doesn't give pretty soon, if something doesn't change, if we don't change something. Because right now we see our politicians aren't going to change anything for us. They're not going to do it. So I guess they're leaving it up to us. And that might be a mistake on their part. But they're leaving it up to us. It looks like we'll see Thursday how far they are willing to go for us. And the way I look at it is, if Thursday they can at the very least, shoot this New York bill down and then take this election to an emergency audit. If they can't do those two things, I have lost complete faith in our government and our politicians at that point in time. Not that I have a lot in them now, but at that point in time, it's not just the faith, but it's the respect. And it's also the, the authority. If you're not going to do what you were hired to do, then what authority do you really have over us? I mean, you're not even protecting us like you should be. we pay taxes. And I'd said before, I pay like 30,000 in taxes a year. And what I meant by that was, I'm figuring in sales tax and all that. Think about how much money that you pay every year in car tax, sales tax, property tax, income tax, all the other taxes. You think about gasoline. If you buy gasoline for $2 a gallon, probably half of that is going into taxes. Same with cigarettes, the same with alcohol. And so they're making a killing on these taxes. We're paying them, and they're spitting in our faces. They're taking our money and they're using it to better or to make themselves richer and to give themselves things that, they tell us we can't have, and that's freedom. We're taking our freedoms away one by one by one. Oh, Miss Pleasance, you live in the UK and you're not allowed to leave your tier or your zone. Wow. I knew the UK was locked down. What do they call it? Tier 4 or something like that? Stage 4 lockdowns, something to that effect. If you could tell me what they call it, Miss Pleasant, what do they call that? Tier 4 lockdowns in the UK? Yeah, tier 4. That's crazy. I mean, you say that right there. You can't even leave your zone. You're stuck in a zone. You're stuck in a zone. And guess what, America? They already got us broken zones. FEMA zones. There's 10 FEMA zones in the United States, and they're broken down. I'm going to put a link to where you can look at a map of all the regional FEMA zones right here. So you can find out where your FEMA zone will be. So let's put that link up here. So that link right there just shows the map of the U.S. broken down into 10 different FEMA zones that are out there. So there's 10 of them. And like the tier 4 that she was talking about, I don't expect it to be further behind here. I mean, everything is in place. When you build a house, the first thing you build is the foundation. And then you build the structure, you build the walls, you do the framing. And then you build the roof, and then you come back and you finish it all off. Well, they built the foundation with the FEMA camps, with the training for the military and the police, with the laws they've been passing, and they built the foundation with the basically the Democratic Party taking over politics in the U.S. So the foundation is there, and now they're putting up the framework. The framework is more laws, and it's laws like what we see, what we've been talking about here. Laws that basically give them the right to lock us up for any reason, because when you say you've got the right to contain somebody because they're suspected of having a virus that I may not even have any symptoms from, but you suspect of having it, that's basically saying you're going to lock anybody up for anything. Whether New York passes that or not is common. It's coming, and it's coming to my state. It's coming to your state. It's coming to all of our states. And at some point in time, we're going to have to make that tough decision. And, we all know what that tough decision is. The hard part is to know exactly when to make that decision. We've been wanting our politicians to help us out, and they've been failing us. They've been stabbing us in the back, basically, all year. I mean, it's been terrible to watch some of the things that's been going on in politics. It's absolutely disgusting, really. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for this nation, for the rest of the world, to see our politicians doing the things they're doing, and to see them doing it to us, and the rest of the world probably saying, why are y'all taking that? You're America. You should be standing up for your rights. That's my question too. Why aren't we? And, we need to. The real question is how. We've tried all of the legal roads. We've tried politics, and we're trying that now. We're making our voices heard. There's millions of YouTube videos of people expressing what they want to see and expressing, their opinions. But this is all being ignored. It's all being ignored by the politicians who just get up on stage and go in front of the TV screen and talk about how good they are, and how they're going to work for us. Are you really, are you really going to work for us? Because you're not doing it. You haven't done it for the last 10 years, 20 years. You're not going to do it now. And it's become ever so obvious to all of us that our complete political system needs a complete overhaul. One way or another, it needs a complete overhaul. It's like Trump had said, it's the swamp. It's even worse than the swamp. It's the marsh at the bottom of the swamp. I mean, I don't even know how to put it. There's so many people in there that have, in my opinion, illegally made their fortunes, because I don't think any member of Congress should be able to hold stocks in companies that they're placing votes on, whether those companies, get a certain contract or not. That should be illegal. And it's just absolutely crazy. Yeah. Yeah, Aaron. If I got a $52,000 raise on my job, you better believe I'd be in there working overtime and doing a whole lot. And yeah, they voted that $52,000 raise in right in the middle of the summer, when we was hearing them talk about, oh, we're going to give y'all stimulus, but we're going to delay it. But here, we're going to give ourselves this big raise, a raise now bigger than a lot of Americans make in a year. And they just give it to themselves. I mean, we don't see any, and that's what's crazy. And that's exactly what I'm saying. We don't see any of them voting against it, maybe one or two just for show. But realistically, almost every one of them vote for that raise, and they do that so fast. We don't even hear about it most of the time. It's like they put the bill up and it's passed through 2 hours later, and they've got a, $50,000 raise. But give us $600 and it takes 9-10 months. $600 of our own tax money. And that $50,000 they're getting is our money. It's our money. It's the money you spent when you bought something at the store today. It's the money you spent when you put gas in your gas tank, and they're taking that from you. And they're throwing it in our faces. They get on there and they basically just throw it in our face. It's absolutely crazy. And time is coming, it's coming pretty soon, I suppose, that we're going to have to make that decision. So let me see, is that anybody have any questions about that bill that we talked about? Hopefully we went through it, pretty good. And I put the links up so anybody wants to read it, from top to bottom. It's not that long. I think it's like 8-9 pages, something like that. But I'll put it, and at the top of that bill, if you look at it, it also will have a link to the previous 3 bills that were almost identical to this. And that's another thing that's really crazy. Why have they been pushing this same bill? Now, the last 3 bills, they did not make it to a vote in New York. They never made it to a vote. But this one's going to go to a vote. And it's going to a vote. I'm not sure of the process in New York. I'm not from New York. So I know it's going for a vote on 6th. I don't know if that would finalize it. I believe that might just put it into the governor's hands at that point. You know what Cuomo's going to do with it. Cuomo's he's going to push it right on through. That's probably what he wants. That gives him more control of that city, because he's all about control of that city or that state. That's all he wants. And it's really insane. Every single one of my friends just use the same mask over and over. I hear you. I'm not gonna lie. There are times I have to put a mask on. To go in some of the stores up here, they simply will refuse you. I don't go in a lot of stores anymore, but if I want to go in and buy some fresh meat, I have to put a mask on. They will not let me in without it. And I'm guilty of that too. I have like one mask on my dash I'll throw on when I need to. Other than that, I walk around without one. Get a lot of stares. I tell you, get a lot of stares from people up here, but I stare back, smile at them. Yeah, we're blessed to know that's true. No matter how it turns out, at least we had the peace of mind of knowing we saw it coming, and we're doing what we can. I mean, what else can we do except express ourselves right now? It's not time to fight. It's not time to fight. We'll know when it's time to fight. And when that time comes, I believe that, everybody who really believes in this nation, everybody who really wants to see us back to, or, where we should be, will stand up and do that. But we know it's not that time yet. Not now, not today anyway, but we know what's going on, and we're not being fooled by this BS that we see on the news, by these lies that we're being fed by politicians and by newscasters. We're not being fooled by that. We know what's going on, and there's a certain peace in that, I guess, That's funny. I'm a conservative. That's really funny. Well, all right. We've been going about 45 minutes tonight. I'm going to have to go pick up my sinus infection medication here from store right up the street. Go through the drive-through so I don't have to put a mask on. But I hope that everybody, checks that bill out. And I hope that everybody, enjoyed the video. I hope that everything, you have a good night. And I'm going to have another video, another live cast I'm going to do on the 6th, probably about the same time, 6 o'clock. I'll put it up to talk about the things that happened that day, because there's going to be a lot going on that day that we need to talk about. So I definitely want to do a cast that day on the 6th, which would be Wednesday. And we'll look at some more details of this and see what went through, what didn't. And hopefully we have some good news to share that day. Hopefully it won't be all, doom and gloom. Hopefully it'll be something that we can at least smile a little bit about. Aaron James, have I seen videos on News Junkie cartoons about the opening prayer to the 117th? Are you talking about the Warriors Psalm there, Aaron? Because is the vaccine going to cause the zombie apocalypse? Well, I think the people out there voluntarily taking the vaccines are already zombies. They're zombie sheep. You opening a bottle of scotch, DB? I hear you. I may do the same, Johnny Walker. All right. Well, I'm gonna get off here, y'all. I hope the video, was informative. Maybe filled in some gaps about that bill. Be back on the 6th on Wednesday night, and we'll talk more about it. We'll talk about what happened that day, and hopefully things go well. Probably during that time it'll be getting dark, so the protest in Washington will probably be getting into violent mode. Freaks coming out at night. So it'll probably be getting into violent mode. Free states of SS. All right. Well, everybody, I hope y'all have a great night. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless everybody out there. And for now, Serious Survivor out.